Hey everyone, Brad Bradford here on Eglinton West, and I reached out to Jason McDonald, who is the chair of the Little Jamaica BIA. He's also a small business owner for 27 years on Eglinton, and he's going to read us in on all the challenges with the Eglinton Crosstown, what Little Jamaica has been through, and how this resilient community has persevered to move forward.
Toronto is a city of 630 square kilometers, with 158 neighborhoods and more than 3 million people, each with their own story to tell. This is For the Love of TO with Brad Bradford.
All right, hi everyone. I am here with my friend Jason McDonald. Jason is the chair of Little Jamaica's BIA and the owner of Casual Hair Salon. Thank you so much for joining me on For the Love of TO. It's great to be here with you in Midtown.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Good. So Midtown, sort of the center of the city, but we're on Eglinton and we're in Little Jamaica.
Yes.
And for folks who might not know the area well, where exactly is Little Jamaica in the city of Toronto?
All right. So Little Jamaica, it depends on which area or which part of the city you're coming from. But you can say it starts at Marley.
Marley.
And if you're going west, it concludes at Kiel. However, when you reached Oakwood, if you were to go south, it would end up, it'll take you to around, it passed Vaughan, around Rogers Road, ends around there. So it kind of, even Northcliffe, the boundaries of Northcliffe, so it overlaps about 4 neighborhoods within the Eglinton West corridor. Yeah.
So it's got a pretty good territory there. It's a good area, bunch of neighborhoods, bunch of communities.
Yeah, well, it's where I guess where historically Jamaicans migrated and had businesses, and not only Jamaicans but Caribbeans. Yeah, so it is a large territory, but it's if it was up to me, it would be a little bit larger, because even on Marley, right now we're trying to get the conversation going about changing the name of Marley to Bob Marley Road.
Cool.
And extending the jurisdiction of Little Jamaica along Marley. I'm well engaged with the business owners on Marley, and they really embrace that. So if it was up to me, Little Jamaica's territory would extend a little bit further.
Love it, love it. Tell me, just walking around the area here, you see lots of Jamaican restaurants, you see Caribbean cuisine, you see Jamaican-owned businesses. How would you describe Little Jamaica from a neighborhood, a section on Eglinton West, but also from a community perspective?
Well, if you're asking me my opinion,
I am.
yeah, I would describe it as Little Jamaica as the heartbeat of not only Toronto, but we are aware that there's like a Little Jamaica in every major city.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not Little Jamaica, it's a Caribbean community.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say those heritage districts are the heartbeat of the world. You know what I mean? With these communities, Toronto is blessed to have such a cultural background, such a heritage district, not only from a food perspective, but from the field of arts, from the field of sports, and all other dynamics in society. Jamaicans are very influential in this world. You know what I mean? And once again, it's not just Jamaicans. We're extending to the Caribbean community, the African community, at large, you know what I mean? Visible minorities.
So let's talk a little bit about the story of Jamaican community coming here, Caribbean community coming to Toronto. What was that like? What's the story? How did people establish an entrepreneurial presence here in this particular neighborhood? And I should say for folks, you are the chair of the Little Jamaica BIA. You've been doing that for a number of years, so we'll get into that. But where did it start here in Toronto?
Well, for years, getting a job hasn't been always the easiest for people who look like me. So we have to be very gifted and improvise on means to provide as a livelihood. So even for me, I've never been hired by any establishment. I remember when I was younger, my last name, McDonald. I went to look for a job at McDonald's, feeling entitled because I'm Jason McDonald. Reality check hit when they told me no. And they told me, don't come back here. We'll call you.
Right.
Don't come back. So, entrepreneurial, we were doing entrepreneurial before we even knew what that word meant.
Right.
You know what I mean? We've always been able to try to profit somehow off of our gifts. You know what I mean? Our God-given gifts. And we utilize it for the better of Toronto, for the better of society.
So in a sense, the way you describe it there, it was really about, building a business out of necessity, not because it was like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to go build a business. It was more like, I need a job. I need to have a job, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a job for myself. I'm going to build a business. Is that kind of how you describe it?
Yeah, my mother, growing up, mothers have dreams for their sons. This wasn't a dream of my mother. This was more of, we had to do this. You know what I mean? This is one of my gifts. Naturally, I'm an artist. When I bring that service in the hair field, it's people love it. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been here so long, right? So it's something that we got into, as you said, not because of that was the first option. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Let's talk about the BIA a little bit. BIAs are business improvement areas. It's a tool that exists in the city of Toronto, and I think we've got something like 80 of them across the city, but really recognizing a specific business district, having a defined boundary, and there is a levy placed on business owners in that area, commercial properties, but then the monies are pooled and they're able to help with street revitalization, graffiti programs, different things to promote the businesses, but also knowledge exchange, opportunities for advocacy, opportunities to deal with things in the neighborhood from a business perspective. I just want to set the table for folks on what a BIA is. You are the chair of the Little Jamaica BIA, and you've been doing that since 2023. And not like I really like to go back to the pandemic, but it was an interesting time for you to step into that role. The world had been through a lot. There was lots of forced closures. You were in the salon space, doing your artistry, doing hair. What prompted you to put your hand up and say, look, now's the time for me to step up as chair and drive the organization?
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to your words there. When you said moment, can you more clarify what you mean by moment?
Well, I just mean like lockdown, pandemic, 2020. We were still very much in it in 2021. The world and businesses were fundamentally changing how people were dealing with customers, the shift to online. You look at some of the stuff that took place in the right of way with Cafe TO, people's commuting patterns were changing. There was just so much going on at that time that was a fundamental shift from how we were doing it even a few years before. That was my experience, my perspective. But I think 2023, we're starting to come out of it, but for a lot of businesses, they were still facing challenges. They were paying back CERB bills. Their customer base wasn't necessarily the same way. Travel patterns had changed. So you're stepping up to lead the BIA in that moment, that time, 2023. And I would suggest it was still a pretty challenging time for businesses in the city.
So, let me kind of go a little back.
Yeah.
Because 2023, for you to understand 2023, I guess we got to go back even to a little 2015, when Metrolinx arrived. Not to go into our,
we're going to do a whole section on that. But yes.
But when we noticed, or when my business was basically declining financially. When I was suffering from financial decline, I started an organization called OPMB 100, along with my good friend Mr. Samuel Smith. We met up with Mr. Marco Mendocino, and we spoke to him about issues facing the Little Jamaica community. Long story short, OPMB started to receive some phone calls.
What did it stand for?
OPMB 100 stood for One People, Many Businesses.
Ah, smart.
So at that particular time, I think we got up to about 68 small businesses that, because remember, at this particular time, I'm a salon owner.
Yeah.
I'm not really mastered in this field.
Yeah.
I'm just, in Jamaica, we say we're just trying a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to get all the local businesses aware of, do you see what's going on?
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of these businesses signed up. And through that, we got a lot of phone calls. Then after, the community, because at that time, I wasn't really too familiar with the BIA. I had my business from 1999. However, the BIA, that was the York Eglinton BIA. We were not engaged in any type of, any form of dealings.
Yeah.
So we, at that time, when I started OPMB 100, even the chair of York Eglinton BIA, he put one of the posters on his glass, so he recognized it. However, I didn't really recognize the BIA at the time. So it was after learning more, being taught by the community decided to remove the existing executives, and then they replaced them with us, and they elected me as the chairman of the community. So when you get now to 2023 now, you got to remember COVID came around 2019. So previous to COVID coming, we were experiencing a Hurricane Metrolinx.
Yeah.
From 2010. So that radius of time, we were seeking support from the government, from at least OPMB 100 was seeking support from Catherine Wynn, Dalton McGinty, Marco Mendocino, all of the players, Mike Cole, Josh Cole, Amanda Cole, and nothing was happening. Now, when COVID came, and mind you, I'm very sensitive on COVID and health, because I'm very, when it comes on to health, that's the number one to me.
Yeah.
However, when COVID came, we had a prime minister named Mr. Justin Trudeau. He now stated that small businesses are the backbone of the economy. That is when we started to get business relief. That's when we started to get grants. That's when we started to get loans, hydro relief, all type of relief was going on during that period of time. So even though the world was suffering from COVID, at that particular time, I think COVID kind of saved Little Jamaica in the sense where businesses actually got relief. There was no relief for the prior to COVID, and even still now, there's no accountability.
Right.
We're still having uncertainty. We're still having delays. So it's very unique, the perspective of Little Jamaica when it comes on to COVID. And once again, I am sensitive to COVID and the effects it did to the world. I know that it did. It really hampered a lot of people's life and their livelihoods and everything. I know it put a whole chaotic to the whole world, but in reality, we were experiencing a big disaster in Little Jamaica.
So the construction impacts, and for folks that are listening, it's a great time to sit down and chat with you. It's been announced that the Eglinton Crosstown is apparently going to open on February 8th, Super Bowl Sunday. We will see. But what I'm taking from that, Jason, is your experience One People, Many Businesses 100. You'd been involved in community organizing for years before you stepped into the chair role of the BIA. And it was less about the pandemic. It was more about the catastrophe of the Eglinton Crosstown construction and how punishing that had been for hundreds of small business owners here across the corridor.
Definitely. My issue was I had a lot of customers who had businesses,
Yeah.
and they basically got up and ran out. They ran out of town. Some of them a little longer, but a lot of them left right away. I remember Carl Anthony. He just told me, "Yo, I'm gone." And I'm like, "Carl, where are you going?" And he's like, "Metrolinx is coming." And at that time I wasn't even aware. I was in my own little world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Casual Beauty Salon is one of the pillars of the community. You know what I mean? I've had my business since 1999. It's the oldest salon in Little Jamaica. So yeah, a lot of these businesses, I was really hurt when I saw a lot of my customers, a lot of my good friends abandon ship. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So it's very difficult, it seems, for government to build these types of major infrastructure projects in a city. And yet we desperately need more transit. The congestion's never been worse. Not everyone's going to be in a car. We need connections to Line 1. I understand the rationale, but this was a project that formally started, I think, broke ground in 2011. And it looks like it's coming to completion now in 2026. So 15 years later, billions of dollars over budget. And in fact, this was actually, you go back to the Mike Harris government, like originally there was supposed to be an Eglinton subway or Eglinton transit, back then Bob Ray, and then I think Mike Harris scrapped it. So there's been all these starts and stops. In many respects, crosstown transit has been a story in Toronto politics and provincial politics for decades and decades. So as a small business owner and a pillar in the community, what is your advice for governments at all levels when we know these projects are difficult, but you can see, some of the vacancies and the turnovers in the businesses across Eglinton? It has been catastrophic. What is your message on how governments could do this better to get it done quicker and without such a devastating impact on entrepreneurs?
Well, your background, I guess, is urban planning.
Yeah.
So, I'm not an urban planner, but I've lived the experience of policies being made by individuals like yourself. Yeah, this is very unique because you have the Ministry of Culture, for example, and then you have the Ministry of Developer. Right here on Eglinton West, Little Jamaica, this is where you guys have a war. This is a war that you guys are having, not us. You guys are clashing with your own policies. You label the place as a cultural history designation. However, you have developers who want to tear down the place. And then there's a balance. Development shouldn't be erasing what is. It should emphasize and build on what is already there, at least from my perspective. However, that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is a lot of decisions are being made without myself or community members who have probably more knowledge than me at the table. Maybe there's people there that are representing us, but they don't have our best interests at heart. Because let's talk the truth. Not every small business owner owns his building.
Yeah.
If you do the numbers, and this is where it's kind of insulting, because I'm not going to accuse yourself or any government official or any planner that they don't know what they're doing. I definitely think they know what they're doing. This 15-year project in Little Jamaica, I don't think it could have happened anywhere else.
Right.
I don't see this happening in nowhere in the city of Toronto, in no other cultural heritage district. I don't see this happening in Little Portugal. Little Italy, Little China, no little nowhere. They would do this 50. So I'm not going to insult them and say they don't know what they're doing, because this could be strategic. This could be something that they plan to do. Maybe we are on a wait to know level. Maybe they have a plan that they didn't express to the community. This is where transparency comes in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you know, the truth is, I'm gonna give you a real joke, and I don't mean to say it as a joke, but I asked him if I could say this, and he said yes. I have a salon, and I have a barber. I'm not gonna call his name, but everybody knows him.
Okay.
One day I went to work, and immigration surrounded my salon. When I didn't know this at the time, when the barber came in, he was about to work. They grabbed onto him, and they took away my barber. And this is probably the best barber I've ever had at my salon. One of the greatest barbers on Eglinton West. And I tried my best to fight so that he wouldn't get deported. He got deported. We fought to try and get him back. We brought him back. All of this has happened within Metrolink's duration. When they took him, Metrolink started. We brought him back. Metrolinks is still doing Metrolink stuff, and we're still here today.
I just think that you know that wouldn't have been a quick turnaround with the government dealing with that kind of an issue, and it speaks to the glacial pace of this construction. I was chatting with somebody in the neighborhood, and they had pointed out that when this project started, their kids weren't even in school yet, and now they've graduated. So you think about like how long it is, and I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old. I'm turning 5 tomorrow, actually, but their journey in school, and we're just at the very beginning of that, and to go the whole way through and have kids coming out graduating on the other side, it really speaks to how long this took to get done. And you know, I would just say from a government's perspective, you know, there needs to be, as you said, much more transparency and much more accountability. Metrolinx, in my view, the new CEO is different, but was famous for calling a press conference to tell people we're not going to give you an update about the progress. It's like, well, why bother call the press conference? Where's the transparency and accountability in that? It's very frustrating for people, and it's real. It's real for, you know, the community here. It's real for the shopkeepers and the small businesses that are suffering through it. And I think because this was done both with, you know, a consortium, the province, different governments, and the municipality, nobody really owned the issues that you encounter on a construction project on a day-to-day basis. So when you've got, you know, $1 million boring equipment in the ground, and you encounter a TTC or a Toronto Hydro Vault that wasn't on the map, there was no sense of urgency from the city side that needed to get resolved quickly. They're kind of like, well, that's your problem, you know, Metrolinx. And at the same time, it's everybody's problem. It's Torontonians' problem. It's a problem for the businesses on Eglinton. It's a problem for the people who are living in the neighborhoods, you know, in the apartment buildings whose lives have been upended. Their commutes to schools, their commute to work. Like, it's a problem for everyone. But there was so much professional buck passing that I think it certainly contributed to significant delays, and the project that took, you know, I guess 6 years longer than was originally scheduled. And you think about the cost and the impact on that, on the local economy, on the local community, it's significant. So when people are rightly skeptical about the upside of this, and I think there will be an upside, you know, down the road, but it's been, you know, 16 years of hell to get there. And a lot of the people who were here at the beginning are no longer here today to benefit from that investment.
Well, it's what do you value? If you value development over people, then you win. However, over 300 small business closure in one strip. Do you know how much livelihoods that affected?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're talking about children. You know what I mean? Now, these children are also affected as well. Now, the city of Toronto has to deal with these children. You understand what I'm saying? And it's a ripple effect. So yeah, it depends on what you value. I know that sometimes they have all these acts and they'll pay out for land, but they won't pay out for livelihoods. You know what I mean? So that's what we value. This is what urban planners, not only yourself, but the city, the country, the province has shown the Little Jamaica community. And then when something like that happens, now you have a thing of distrust.
Yeah.
Distrust is built now within a community, from municipal to federal, right, to the province. The community hears all these, as you said, all these press conferences.
Yeah.
Everyone's in a nice suit, dressing up.
They're going to be there to cut the ribbon.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, and then I remember, I always hear people talk about 2020. They need to stop saying that. They said that this would be done by 2015.
Oh, wow.
This started 2010. Let me correct everybody. It started 2010. Now, whenever if they wanted to delay their start, that's on them.
Right.
But they
Good
came
point.
in 2010. They said they would be completed 2015. From 2015, we've been hearing all type of, right now you said what, February the 8th?
I think so, yeah.
Come on, do you think anybody in Little Jamaica is even hearing that?
Yeah.
We'll be here.
Yeah.
However, like, come on, remember 2020, we had COVID. No one at that time expected the subway to open when they're closing down all of the whole country. So they need to stop this 2020. We forgot Mr. John Tory. Mr. John Tory with the smart track. He had a smart track. What happened to that? Remember smart track?
That's a good question.
No, I gotta ask these questions because they think we have bad memories.
No, you don't forget.
We remember every single thing that these men have said, and we're gonna hold them accountable because it's really sad. Because as I said, this would have never happened no other place in this country, but right here in Little Jamaica. And I always have to wonder about our representators, because the people who represent this community, what are they doing? You know what I mean? Like, now we're talking about compensating the small businesses now. 15 years later, 300 small business closed later. They obviously don't respect people's livelihood. As I said to you, a lot of people went into small business not because, oh, we want to be a small business owner. No, it's because of necessity.
Yeah.
Because no one was giving us a job. Straight up. No one gave me a job. You know what I mean? So even being the chair of the BIA, the community voted for me. No one gave me that job. When I got that job, I wasn't delivered no mandate. Right now, I'm trying to prepare a strategic plan for Little Jamaica. They don't even have a strategic plan. There's no strategic plan for Little Jamaica after 15 years or 16 years, whatever amount of years. They've even argued with me about that. Metrolinx has discontinued all meetings with Little Jamaica since 2024.
Yeah, we've had experiences out in my ward in Beaches East York that have been really difficult with some of the ravine work and the track work, and it is a different versions of the same story. There's a lot of obstruction. There's not a lot of transparency. There's no accountability, and it's community leaders like yourself that have to just sort of berate, beg, assert, call press conferences, call up elected officials and keep trying to push to hold them to account. But it's a big organization and it's a lot easier said than done. And these transit projects are important in Toronto, but how we do it matters. And I wanted to touch on, you were talking about the impact of businesses. You were talking about the impact of the Jamaican community here. And I was struck when you mentioned a business close, people are putting food on the table for their kids.
Yep.
Is there an intergenerational element here, learnings, trauma, things that you can take from this that people's kids are learning about life in the community, life in the city of Toronto right now?
Well, as children, we know that we're held to a different, I'm talking about people who look like me. People who look like me, we already know that we're held to a different standard. Now, this is proof for those who doubted that. You understand what I'm saying? Because once again, as I said, this would have never happened nowhere else in our country. It is missed opportunities for the country to grow and learn. Like yourself, an urban planner, you guys can learn that when you come into an area like Little Jamaica, consultation with community leaders is very vital. If we value people's life, if that's the value, if we don't value people's life, we do what we're doing. We continue this state. I think right now, Little Jamaica is going to be used as a case study. It's sad that it came off of our backs, but that's the reality. The reality is we're a case study. This is how you don't do infrastructural in a cultural heritage district. This is how you don't do it. You know what I mean? Who is Metrolinx? Who is Crosslinks? Who's Crosstown? I've never heard of them. Yeah. They just came into our life and they're not going nowhere now. So it is what it is. Who brought them in? That's a question I would love to ask someone. Who brought them in? Who's the beneficiary off of all of this?
Your business, Casual Hair Salon, 27 years, 29 years?
27 years.
27 years, 1999. There's not a lot of businesses that make it even 5 years in the city of Toronto. It feels like you're always fighting City Hall when you're a small business owner, but you've stuck it out for nearly 3 decades and you should be commended for that. It's been really hard in this part of town in particular for many years. Why do you continue to fight? Why do you continue to step up and serve and rally folks around the community? Why do you feel like, you know, you need to stay here versus some of your friends that pulled chute, 10 years ago and said, Jason, we're out?
I know it has something to do with my bloodline, but it's really easy, Brad. It's the community. I wasn't given that opportunity. I didn't have that luxury to quit. You know what I mean? The community came to me and they rallied to me asking me, what are we going to do? Members of the community came to me of all ages. I didn't really ask that to wear that burden. However, it was brought to me. Casual Beauty Salon is a hub in the sense of knowledge. We provide knowledge to the community. It's like a university. One of the major declines when COVID came and it shut down the whole community, they told the hair salons we had to close down.
Yeah.
People didn't know what to do because the hair salon, Casual Beauty Salon, I should say in particular, is a place of information. It's a source where people rally to all the time to get knowledge. So when COVID came and they said, for example, barbershops, beauty salons aren't essential, that was false again. Because who are you to say what's essential from what's not essential? I got 10 people calling me saying, come to their house. So if you're saying we're not essential, obviously you're not engaged with the community.
Yeah, pretty out of touch.
Because if you're saying what's essential and what's not essential, and you list haircuts as non-essential, however, the veterinarian is open, and dogs go and get their hair cut all the time, get groomed. So what are we valuing? What are we really valuing?
Or you can go to Walmart and a big box store with thousands of other people's, but not visit a mom and pop shop in the neighborhood.
So thankfully, the community didn't listen to the government mandates, and they reached out, and they continue to reach out to me to this day. Right now, I'm in a zone. I have over 50 small businesses and property owners vote of confidence. You know what I mean? And that was done. Remember, this is Little Jamaica. Not everybody's open right now. It's more of a night crowd. So a lot of businesses might not open till after 6, till after 5.
Mhm.
So to get petitions, signatures from the community, in confidence of the job that we're doing. Not only myself, Miss Diane Layler, she's the treasurer of the BIA, the Little Jamaica BIA. You know what I mean? So and not only Diane Layler, if I'm gonna say Miss Diane Layler, I gotta be fair. I gotta say Miss Jada, who she's the secretary as well. Mr. Gordon Genthru, Miss Yvette Spencer, she's the chair of the marketing committee. Mr. Claude Thompson, he's the chair of the streetscape committee.
This is a big team.
Oh, we have a board
Yeah.
of 15, 14 members.
Good.
You know what I mean? And we want to do what's best for the community. This community right now is actually engaged in the BIA. Remember, before we didn't know nothing about the BIA. Right now, this is called the Little Jamaica BIA. As of March 25th, 26th, 27th, the motion was adopted by the city. They got back to us and we announced it. So this is now the Little Jamaica BIA. In years past, it was the York Eglinton BIA.
Right.
The community didn't feel in touch with that.
No connection to
There was no connection to that. As a matter of fact, when I speak of Little Jamaica, I go all the way down to Kiel.
Yeah.
You notice that. There's 2 other BIAs there. There's the Fairbank BIA and there's the Hill, Eglinton Hill.
Okay.
I have permission from Eglinton Hill to speak on Little Jamaica. Not the same with Fairbank. Fairbank wants their own identity, which I respect.
Sure.
However, if you speak to the small businesses, they might speak different. So it's all about reflecting. And I understand that areas you might not look at the small business with value, as politicians. The small business doesn't have a vote, right? It's mostly the residents. However, when this small business is gone, the resident loses so much. For example, a shirt that might cost $10, $15, $20. Now, when that small business is gone, you better find Yorkdale or you better find Eaton Center. That $20 shirt is $100, $150.
I tell you, I've always said this, our Main Street mom and pop shops, that actually is the heart of a community. That is the identity of a community, the neighborhood. I've got that sections of O'Connor and East York, down to the beaches, Queen Street, India Bazaar in Gerrard, Banglatown on Danforth. Like, it actually is so core to the identity of a neighborhood. And when they're gone, people are aware. The coffee shop, or the place where they used to do their dry cleaning, or the place that they always go for food when friends are in town, like you notice and you miss that stuff when it closes up. And it's a reminder that was somebody's, maybe it was their dream, maybe it was something that they created out of necessity, but they brought all their time, their talent, and their treasure to make that happen. And when there are forces that are beyond your control, like the Eglinton Crosstown, I think it's really important for us to remember it's not just about property or land value and expropriation. It's also about the opportunity cost and what we're doing to community when these projects are done in a way where people's time doesn't seem to be valued. So I appreciate that there's lots of skepticism about the February 8th opening of the Crosstown, and it is going to open eventually, I suppose. Lots of Black-owned businesses here in Little Jamaica. There's been lots of promise about jobs. You've even got Metrolinx out there right now, flyering, postering, saying that there's going to be jobs for people in the community. But I'm not sure if folks in the neighborhood, folks in the community are making that connection on how they work with Metrolinx or Crosslinx or the TTC to land some of those jobs. What are you hearing from people about the opening? What are you hearing from other Black-owned businesses? What's the feedback about this thing opening up on February 8th, and how do people make those connections with the jobs that are being promised?
So there's a lot of questions there,
Yeah.
A good question, Mr. Brad. Number one, the February 8th date, we aren't certain on anything yet. We've heard dates from 2015, as I said. So we're not going to lose no sleep.
Yeah.
I don't want to traumatize my community more than it already has been. This is a broken community, and those dates, those uncertainties, it's not good if you don't. And then when they do come, there was a transit at Finch. Because we're in our own crisis, I don't pay that no mind. But that debacle, are they going to bring that here as well too?
Yeah, Finch West did not go well, and I think that speaks to the frustration. Is it was years and years, billions of dollars, many delays,
Yeah.
and you open on day one, you're not ready for prime time.
So listen, I've already told Mr. Metrolinx, you've already missed X amount of deadlines. Take your time.
Yeah.
Make sure when you do open, we're up and running.
No.
Now, when you came onto the jobs, once again, I told you about the transparency. I told you that they discontinued all communications with the Little Jamaica BIA, not only Little Jamaica BIA, but the Eglinton Alliance, because that meeting that we had was with the Alliance. There is an image placed right beside my salon, the Oakwood station, the Oakwood Little Jamaica station. There's an image of colored crayons. I want to ask you, Mr. Brad, as an urban planner, what does colored crayons represent?
To me, it makes me think of my kids, like drawing pictures, stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's what do you think it was supposed to mean?
Well, I guess because I'm an artist,
Yeah.
I have more of an artist background.
Right.
I know every artwork has a theme.
Okay.
So colored crayons, at least from the theme, from the artist that I discovered, it means diversity. Now, it's very interesting that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've driven around and looked at all of the infrastructural subways along Eglinton, in other regions, and I don't see the same colored crayons. I wonder, in a cultural heritage district, remember, this is the city of Toronto. When you come off the plane, I can understand you having those, because this is a diverse country.
Right.
However, we have sections in this beautiful city of ours. This is Little Jamaica. Number one, the artist. Was that put out by Metrolinx? Was that a job offer? The same thing you just mentioned. Was that a job offer? If that was a job offer, why wasn't that offered to someone in our community? Why didn't our community have an opportunity to pick up artwork that would be displayed in front of us every single day? That artwork is an insult to the Little Jamaica community. The way they do things, Metrolinx, Crosslinks, Crosstown, whatever name they choose to hide under, is very interesting and it's very concerning. This job thing now, I am the last person to know. I'm the chairman of Little Jamaica BIA, and I don't have no knowledge about job posting, anything. Now I know when that subway opens, I'm gonna bring my casual sign and I'm gonna put right in there. If they kick it out, I'm gonna put it back in there again.
Right.
Because they need to show that they're gonna support what's remaining of the Black-owned businesses in Little Jamaica. I also offered Metrolinx some advice before they went kaboom on me. I offered them, and this wasn't now, this was about 2 years ago, because I was driving here and I saw a sign and it said, Black History Month, Metrolinx cares, or something like that.
Right.
So I said, whoa, that was very disturbing. I had a call. I phoned them. I phoned Mr. Metrolinx again. I don't want to disclose their names.
Sure.
But yeah, I phoned them and I said, you know that Little Jamaica is predominantly a Black area. For you to show that you have care or support for Black History Month, are you forgetting your relationship the last X amount of years within Little Jamaica?
Right.
You know what I mean? I offered them a way because I'm not into dwelling. We already recognize the damage has been done. Let's move forward now. How do we preserve what's here? I offered them a suggestion: perseverance funding. Give a funding for the businesses that you came and you saw, and they're still here. Because this is perseverance now. We're at the point of perseverance now. That was at that time. So that's about 3 years ago I offered that to them. Black History Month is coming again. I don't have no communication with Metrolinx. I don't know if they're gonna offer a job posting, to who they're gonna offer it to, when they're gonna offer it. You're saying it's February the 8th. I said I'll be there, but I'm in limbo. I'm in limbo. When it comes on to Metrolinx, Crosstown, I don't know. I'm better off asking you, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to create the impression that they keep us in the loop either. I normally just see it on CP24 or something. But yeah, no, that's a good point. And there does seem to be, as you tell me your story, a real disconnect from the work that Metrolinx was doing certainly with the BIA and many of the Black-owned businesses here and the broader community. And I think, if that offer still stands, I think the Perseverance Fund, that's still a really good idea, but people who have survived, because it's been a long journey to get to this moment and this opening, whenever that may happen.
One last point I would like to make. Every time I have conversation, normally people say, oh, well, Metrolinx gave 1 point something mil to Little Jamaica. What I want Metrolinx to do is to be more clear, more transparent on what they've done for Little Jamaica, and also recognize that there's been things done to Little Jamaica that the small businesses, it wasn't for the small businesses. Like, for example, when Mr. John Tory came out, I remember Mr. John Tory said they were going to give $3 million to Eglinton West. That $3 million got cut to $1 million. That $1 million got cut to the 5 BIAs for streetscape, where we have to apply for a grant for construction mitigation, like a 50 grand each application. These are the things that was signed off on before our arrival, my arrival as chairman. These are things that were already implemented. Now, as I said to you, we became a Little Jamaica BIA March 26th, 27th, when the motion was approved.
Yeah.
I would love for Metrolinx to state what they've ever given the Little Jamaica BIA. And be clear. If they want to say they've given such and such to the York Eglinton BIA, be clear on that. What I do know is they allocate funds to the BIAs in communities. Any organizer can apply for it. When organizers apply for it, they have their events. Let me know, how does that help the small businesses? And mind you, if you're bringing crowd, that's good for that day. And it'll be good probably going forward if the crowd keeps coming. However, don't make it seem, the perspective that we're getting from Metrolinx is that the funds that they've given Little Jamaica should be all right. Is that the impression that they're trying to deliver to the public?
Well, it's not the impression that you're giving me here based on your work with the community. And I think it's a good point, whether it is the mayor or the CEO of Metrolinx or anybody else that is in a public position, more transparency, more accountability, and frankly, more honesty and less spin about what sort of resources and investments are coming in and how we're trying to address the challenges that we're hearing directly from people in the community.
Definitely.
I appreciate you sharing your story and your perspective. Admittedly, anyone watching this knows that I don't go and get a lot of haircuts, but the good news is it sounds like I can come to a casual hair salon for community. I don't have to get my hair cut because I do that myself, but I could come for community. So thank you so much for joining us. And if anybody wants to learn more, you can give the BIA a follow on Instagram at Little Jamaica BIA. And if they want to know more about what you're doing, Jason, they can find you on Instagram at thehonorable.ward8 and at Casual Hair Salon. Thanks so much for joining me on For the Love of TO.
Thank you so much for having me, Brad.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you. All right.
This is For the Love of TO.